you really buying a car online on AutoTrader right now?
Really, I can get super specific with dealer listings and see cars based on my budget.
You can really have it delivered.
Or pick it up.
Mommy, look!
I think your kid is walking up the slide.
Really?
AutoTrader. Buy your car online. Really.
Raise the rudders! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more. Start converting your B2B audience today. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started today at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome back to I Want That Too, the podcast where Disney merch meets Disney history. I'm entertainment writer Jim Hill, and as always, I'm joined by the lovely Lauren Hersey, and we are recording this on a Saturday night, January 31st, and you've been out and about this afternoon. Is that correct, Lauren?
Yes. We were snowed in for a week, so the kids had basketball games and cheering and all that stuff. And Lainey's like, can we please go to TJ Maxx? It's a double clearance sale. So it's like final sales. And I am an equal opportunist shopper. I love Disney merch, but I also just like shopping, period. What are you up to on this Saturday night?
Well, I speaking of shopping, I recently acquired the latest book from the Hyperion Historical Alliance. This is a group of Disney historians that have taken it on themselves to create this series of books. In fact, this is the 4th volume in the series, Lauren. It's a monograph about Mickey Mouse of the 1930s, the Christmas season, done by Didier Guez, the gentleman behind the Waltz People books. And you would love this book particularly, Lauren, because it focuses largely on Mickey Mouse in stores in the 30s, and more to the point, how each of the individual stores would get kids to come out for the holiday season. So don't get me wrong, some of the Mickey Mouses that they create for the 30s are downright scary. They're homemade or store-made outfits. But on the other hand, there are photos in here I've never seen before. I mean, for example, there is a picture of a teeny tiny Walt Disney standing in front of the very first Mickey Mouse balloon that was ever made for Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. And it's worth it alone for all of the crazy photos from the 30s and 40s from when Mickey was barely a decade old.
That's super cool. So where did you get that book? Did it just show up, right?
Well, no, I actually got it from Stuart Ning. He runs a bookstore out in L.A. In fact, he just relocated to Bigger Digs. It's just Stuart is the place you go if you're looking for Disney art books or Disney history books or sketchbooks that Disney artists sold at like Comic-Con or that sort of thing.
Well, that is amazing. All right, Jim. Well, let's get into the show because we have a ton to cover per usual. So today we are talking about how Disney is turning experiences into collectibles into strategy, and strategy into must-buy merch. That was a lot to follow, but ultimately we're talking about a Tao animal plush that's coming to the Disney Cruise Line. Really excited about that. A few interactive popcorn buckets that just dropped, and a Disney doll that is being released during Paris Fashion Week. Yep, that's happening. And in today's feature, Jim is talking about the surprising history behind Disney California Adventure's most debated icon and why the giant wheel has been misunderstood since day one.
Cool.
But before we get into that, let's thank our sponsor.
Absolutely. And this episode of I Want That Too is brought to you by our friends at UnlockMagic.com, the go-to place for some of the best deals on theme park tickets. If a Disney or Universal trip is anywhere on your radar for 2026, Unlock Magic helps you lock in great ticket prices without the stress, all handled by people who really know the parks and how to save you money. So if you're thinking, okay, maybe this is the year we finally go, head to unlockmagic.com to grab the best ticket deals and make that future trip just a little bit more magical. Okay, so I have to say that this first item you're going to be talking about in the news portion of today's show, the Eevee, the cruise line plush. I fell in love with Eevee. Was it last year they did the commercial for the cruise line with Eevee?
Yes. So, like, the timing is odd. And I actually remember saying when we were talking about Eevee last year, I'm like, I want an Eevee plush. And, like, almost a year later, here we are. But if you are not familiar with Eevee, what we're talking about, I can't remember if this commercial dropped like during the Super Bowl or it was Super Bowl adjacent, like Super Bowl that week. But the Disney Cruise Line put out this like super emotional, like really cute commercial that like referenced how the mouse keepers make the little animals out of towels and they leave them on your bed. I've never been on a Disney cruise yet, but that's what this premise is, and it's kind of telling the story of the towel animal and what they're doing while you're out having fun, and ultimately it's saying like we'll miss you. So Eevee looks to be, would you say Eevee is a towel bunny?
Well, the weird thing is when I look at the image of Eevee, I see a long pointed tail. I see maybe a hound dog. I mean, in fact,
Maybe.
that's what I remember from the last this ad. To the effect of they got so much emotion and personality out of this blank slate of a character. I mean, it was a real tribute to both the puppeteer, who was making the creature, move, and likewise whoever came up with the design, went through all of the very, because remember, when you're on a Disney cruise line, every time you come back to your room, there's a different towel animal on your bed.
Yes, I mean, it makes sense. So if you are interested in getting an Eevee plush, it looks like they're going to be dropping exclusively on Disney cruise ships February 8th. And then this one particularly is very cute. It's wearing a Mickey ear hat with the gold embroidered cruise ship logo. I could not find the price of Eevee at this point, but if anybody is taking a cruise and they see these, like, would you take a pic and send them to Jim and I? We would love to see what Eevee actually looks like outside of the marketing images.
Please do. Okay, now moving on to our next news item for this week, and this actually keys off of we're coming up. In fact, this coming week, Sunday, February 8th, is the official 25th anniversary of the opening of Disney California Adventure. And to commemorate that, the park has come up with kind of an interesting way, to sort of take home some of the magic. Do you want to talk about that, Lauren?
Yes, I do, and I promise I will, but I have to ask you first. Did you see what special character is meeting and greeting for the 25th anniversary of DCA that you have a personal love for?
No, who's coming out?
I'm going to blow your mind. Humphrey the Bear is meeting at DCA for the 25th anniversary.
No.
Yeah.
Where did that break? Oh my God, really?
Yeah, I think it just came out yesterday, and I was like, I can't wait to tell Jim. Like he's going to love this.
Oh no, now I have to. Well, I was already planning when we were out in California in March to go to the park, but please tell me it's not like he's only there for like a day, right?
I don't think so. They're doing something in the evening. I will send you the article, but when I saw it, because if you're not familiar, Jim is the #1 Humphrey the Bear fan.
Yes. I mean,
So there's lots of awesome things besides what we're just getting ready to talk about for the 25th of DCA. But what Jim was alluding to was the new interactive lighting effect Ferris wheel popcorn bucket, the Pixar Pal-A-Round Ferris wheel. And this is equal parts epic, equal parts confusing, equal, like it is just kind of everything. It's one of those things. I don't know, Jim, did you see the video of anybody carrying it around, or did you just see the picture?
I have to admit, I only saw the picture, and it is a wonderful likeness of, God, this thing has gone by 3 different names over the past 25 years. Sun Wheel, Mickey Wheel, and then finally the Pixar Pal-A-Round. But no, it has a lovely likeness of the face of this. In fact, it's not a Ferris wheel; it's an eccentric wheel, and we'll get to that later on in today's show. But it has a lovely likeness of the side of the Ferris wheel that faces into Paradise Lagoon with the giant pie-eyed Mickey from the 30s up on it. But what else does it do?
Well, the back side of it is where you eat your popcorn, because that was my initial thought. I saw a video of it first
Okay.
before I saw the photo, and I was like, where does the popcorn even go? Like, is this just bragging rights? Because I mean, I know you said it's not called a Ferris wheel, but to me it looks like a Ferris wheel, and you're not like, there's not a ton of storage. You're not going to put the popcorn in like the little buckets that people ride in. But anyway, so this one is cool because there's this new interactive technology. It's called Magic Inside technology, and ultimately as you're walking with the popcorn bucket, the buckets that the gondolas that people would sit in, they actually swing. And then if you tap the Mickey face, you get like it lights up, and it has, a pretty like lighted pattern, I guess. And so if you are like looking for attention and you want people to notice your like popcorn bucket accessory, this is the one for you. I'm telling you, epic and unique and special. I don't know. It's cool. But this comes out February the 6th. And they say while supplies last, because I have a feeling that this is going to be one that sells out really, really quickly. Even just as like, if you're a collector like we are, I would actually really like one of these. But you can mobile order at Hollywood Lounge and Boardwalk Pizza and Pasta February 6th through the 8th. You do that on your app, and they'll give you a return time. And then there's also popcorn carts at Grizzly Peak Airfield, Fairfax Market, Mortimer's Market, and then some other carts. So if you're out there and you see these, please let us know. I would love to see what this actually looks like in person.
And speaking of popcorn buckets, we now switch to the East Coast, where Festival of the Arts, or as Eric and Lauren like to say over at Diz and Hers, farts.
It is farts. It's an epic farts bucket.
There we go. All right, but we have a new collector bucket here as well, and tell the nice people about this one.
Yeah, so I wanted to bring this one up as well because it seems like it pays homage to the bucket that went like super viral back in 2022 for farts. It makes me laugh. But anyway, so we're getting another Figment, and this time it is interactive. So I'm assuming it's that same Magic Inside technology. So if you look at our little Figgy here, he's wearing a beret and he's holding a paintbrush, and he has a bow tie. So from what I understand, the paintbrush actually it's removable, comes out, and changes colors. So I'm thinking that I don't know that this is going to get, 7-hour lines like what we saw back in 2022, but I have seen a lot of people posting on social media that they're really excited about this.
Okay, and but only available in one place, or am I reading this wrong?
No, from what I can tell, it's $29. It also is a mobile order, and then it's
Oh,
Figment's inspiration station inside the Odyssey, and that's where you go
okay.
and pick them up. And I have seen a bunch of pictures of like it looks just like a giant like tables of these popcorn buckets, and I think this is one that is limited as well. So I'm hoping that like we didn't have the mobile order technology back in 2022 for merch, like we're
There we
using
go.
it now. So I'm hoping that
Hmm.
this will, control some of that demand. They're limiting them now, to try to like crack down on, some of the reselling and people that, they go there to get something and then, there's not enough for everybody.
Hmm. Now, speaking of which, we've seen Disney being somewhat proactive with the resellers in the past week or so, right?
Yes. And our friends Jenny and Michael, they just got back I think a
Hmm.
week or two ago from the parks. They were doing the marathon, and
Hmm.
they were having we've talked about the marathon merch and the resellers with that, and like how these people spend $800 a person to participate in the marathon, and then they can't even get a t-shirt or like a hoodie
Hmm.
or whatever. So they did say that it was slightly better this year than it was last year, but like that they're still trying to like find the balance. But where they're cracking down on resellers here is at the character warehouses, the both locations in Orlando, as well as property control, and that is the cast member only store
Hmm.
on property. And so before I saw what was going on with returns, I saw this video that was on Reddit but went viral on TikTok. And it showed a girl, she was at the character warehouse, and she was just showing a video of all of the people live stream like social shopping on their phone. And so they're basically like, okay, I'm at the character warehouse. Like they have these for $9.99. They have this shirt for $6.99. And like they were just emptying like entire bins of merchandise, in real time for people to sell. And she was like, this has got like this, you can't even shop in here anymore because people just are doing
Hmm.
this as their side gig. So after that, I quickly, within the next week or so, saw that Disney quietly made, I think, a pretty significant policy change at the locations I just said. So as of
Hmm.
February 1st, there are no more returns for refunds, no exchanges, and all sales are final. What do you think
Woof.
about that?
Well, okay. I guess I have a problem with that because, for example, sometimes I'll buy, a double X of something, and it turns out a double X is like, quadruple X, and so, want to go back and go, okay, I made a mistake. Can I have just the XL? And something like this, where I mean, it's a legitimate, it's like, hey, I bought the wrong size. Can, I exchange it? And no, you can't. I mean, I get it. I get that Disney's trying to shut down the resellers. But and I kind of hope maybe further on down the line they might revisit this idea, particularly after they've kind of stomped that group and they've gone on to other side hustles. But
Yeah,
wow.
and I mean, like, so if you think about it from, Disney's perspective, so resellers, they could buy this bulk merch and then they would just rely on Disney's return policy as a safety net if they weren't able to sell that stuff. So then people could bring back thousands of items or thousands of dollars of items and return that stuff. And like, I don't know what their policy is for like returned items. But what was surprising to me, because I'm all about the comment section, like that's where the real story is. Like I was
Sure.
surprised by how many people, like just regular shoppers, were like, they were actually okay with this, because I think that shopping at those places has got more challenging.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, I guess like my question is like, why couldn't they just do what they're doing at the parks and saying like limit of 2 or limit of, 5, even 10, depending what it is?
Well, I mean, the hard reality here is, especially at the Character Warehouse and again, the cast member only store out back. I mean, I'm not going to lie, that those places actually relied on the resellers to come in and, I mean, they had got a very healthy turnover. They'd come in, buy up a lot of stuff, and then go home, put it up on eBay and mark it up significantly. And so, they began to rely on, those folks. But when it got to the point where, the regular customers coming in, the folks who were standing outside in the line to get into the Character Warehouse, only to come in and like, well, I'm sorry, the place has been picked clean already this morning by the professional shoppers. That didn't make for a great experience. So this is Disney attempting to do a reset, for those folks. And, I mean, life is all about balance. So it'll
Thinking
just
life's
be
a balance.
Yeah, it'll just be interesting to see, 6 months or so when we circle back on this story. But again, Lauren, I don't think you're wrong. A quick and easy fix here would, in fact, be the policy from the parks. Limit 2.
Yeah, so we shall see. All right, final story for today is on the complete opposite end of the Disney merch spectrum. So we talked about the popcorn buckets and outlet bins and resale culture, and now we're jumping straight into high fashion couture. So I don't know if you saw this, but Disney has officially revealed the Victor and Rolf Disney Collector Cinderella doll, and like we've talked about before, some of these dolls are not for kids. These are collector items.
No. Yep.
Yeah, and so this one is specifically for adult collectors, and I would assume people that really like fashion, because this doll just screams fashion. So she's wearing it's Cinderella, and she has like puffy tulle sleeves, and I'm trying to see, it's basically like you came, you saw, but you left early, is what the dress says in like big, bold, like blocky letters. But I thought what was crazy about this is that like it's being debuted at the at Fashion Week.
Yep, in Paris, no less.
Do you think they're gonna have people dressed like Cinderella? Are there gonna be other princesses? Like what is going on here?
I think this is more about a Disney, it's like, let's get people talking about our stuff. I mean, face it, this is not something that you're making for the masses. This is not something you're making for, tens of thousands of little girls on the heels of, a new Cinderella, direct-to-video, that sort of thing. I mean, this is in fact, that's what I found fascinating when I shared this story with you, was to watch the other places it was bubbling up. Just because, in fact, just because of the message on the dress. There, I came, I saw, I left early. It's like that's a funny thing for Cinderella to say, but also the little modern, things that come with this doll. Like, what is it? She's carrying a smartphone.
Yes, and it's like frozen on 11:59 p.m.
There you go. There we go.
What's weird to me is that she's not wearing glass slippers. She's wearing like high fashion heels. How do we feel about that? Like, isn't that her whole like vibe, is the glass slippers?
I think this is more this is a doll for high-end collectors, for the folks who have been collecting Cinderella stuff. And the notion of, wow, this is the Cinderella that went to Paris Fashion Week. It's like, I want that, and so they get it. So for me, it will be interesting to see what happens after this. Is this the first of a collection? Or are we going to, going forward every Paris Fashion Week, are we going to see, is Belle or Ariel next to get this sort of treatment? And if so, what kind of ironic take are we going to get on those two characters?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this is the start of something, and we've talked about it on the shows that Disney does want to be in that market. I mean, they want to be in the markets where people are spending money. But the reason I think that this is part of something bigger is, did you see that they're releasing that documentary? It's Disney Princess, Create Your World, Victor and Rolf and Mattel, premiering March 24th on Hulu and ABC's digital platforms. And so this is the third episode in the Create Your World series that feature other collaborations. So, I mean, it feels bigger than just one doll.
It does, and again, in today's world where it's not enough to have something that you're selling, you're also creating content which helps you sell what you're selling. This seems like a part of a bigger, more ambitious strategy than usual.
So if you're interested, the doll, I believe, is $125. There is a pre-sale going on now. There's all these websites I did not know existed. I didn't know the Marvel Oreo one existed, but this is at mattelcreations.com and then the Victor-Rolf.com. And then, like we talked about, the wider release is planned for spring. And of course, as always, for a collector's item, quantities are limited.
There we go. So, in the news portion of today's show, folks, we talked about what is it that we talked about a Ferris wheel popcorn bucket, a Figment popcorn bucket, and now the Cinderella high fashion doll. It's an interesting time to be in this space.
I told you at the top of the show, Disney is like bringing strategy. And I mean, they have a new marketing, CMO brand executive that's trying to consolidate the marketing messaging. And so it all makes perfect sense to me. Nothing shocking here. But anyways, after the break, you're going to tell us, we're going to go back to old school. We're going back to DCA, and we're talking about the non-Ferris wheel Ferris wheel, correct?
There we go. But before that, there's this.
We heard you. 9 years of Bring Back the Snack Wrap, and you've won. But maybe you should have asked for more. Say hello to the Hot Honey Snack Wrap. Now you've really won. Go to McDonald's and get it while you can.
ABC's David Muir, the most trusted anchor in America, the most watched anchor in America. Thank you for making World News Tonight with David Muir the #1 newscast in America. Most trusted, most watched. David Muir on ABC.
And we're back. And just want to remind folks that early on in today's show, Lauren was nice enough to share that info about the 25th anniversary popcorn bucket they're doing for California Adventure, which is the Magic Happens, I guess, a version of the Pixar Pal-A-Round. Magic Inside. There we go. It's a dynamic popcorn bucket, and again, modeled after a 150-foot tall attraction that towers over Pixar Pier at the edge of Paradise Pier. And by the way, as I mentioned earlier on in the show, not actually a Ferris wheel. They technically, the Pixar Pal-A-Round is an eccentric wheel. That's what folks in themed entertainment call the thing. It's based on the Wonder Wheel, Lauren, at Coney Island in New York. And have you and the family during your trips to the park, have you ever ridden this thing?
Oh my gosh, Jim, it was hilarious. When we were at Disney the first time, the five of us are in one of the like big ones, and it's swinging, right? None
Yep.
of us thought that this would be as intense. And
Mhm.
Eric and Hunter, who are not afraid of anything, were
Mhm.
nearly in tears, freaking out. And I was trying to like mobile order lunch, and they were like,
Yep.
"Shut up, shut up, shut up!" Like they were terrified, absolutely terrified.
Well, and that's the thing. 16 of the 24 gondolas on the Pixar Pal-A-Round, they slide back and forth as this thing rotates, and that's the other thing. Typically, you're in there. Each of these gondolas hold 8 people, so you're in there freaking out, in front of perfect strangers.
So is that what makes it eccentric? Is that it has the sliding
There
gondolas?
you go. You got it one. By the way, initially known as the Sun Wheel. In fact, what's kind of interesting, in fact, Shul and I are working with Len on an upcoming episode of Disney Unpacked, where we're talking about icons at the park. And what was kind of interesting is California Adventure, for the longest time, couldn't decide what its icon was, whether it was the Sun Wheel or the face of the bear on Grizzly Peak or Tower of Terror. But anyway, initially known as the Sun Wheel, as part of the first redo of DCA. Again, in fact, as of May of 2009, this became known as the Mickey Wheel. And by the way, that redo of California Adventure wouldn't be completed till June of 2012 with the opening of Buena Vista Street, Cars Land. And then just 8 years after that, Lauren, it was decided that DCA's Paradise Pier would now be reimagined as Pixar Pier, using the Toy Story Midway Mania ride, which first opened at that theme park in June of 2008, as an excuse to retheme all of the attractions along the boardwalk to Pixar films. So that's how California Screamin' became Incredicoaster. That's how King Triton's Carousel became Jesse's Critter Carousel. And then the Ariel's Grotto Restaurant. That's actually how that then became the Lamplight Lounge.
It's now like Coco, right?
Yeah. Okay, now, what was interesting is that the Mickey face remained on the side of this eccentric wheel that faced out into Paradise Bay. Now, if on the other hand you were on the Pixar Pier side, walking up to this eccentric wheel, you encountered a marquee that now identified this DCA attraction as the Pixar Pal-A-Round, that opened June of 2018. And now all of the gondolas, rather than having classic Disney characters in the 30s on them, now have Pixar characters. And Lauren, you mentioned this as we were going into the break, that the Sun Wheel, the Mickey Wheel, the Pixar Pal-A-Round has been controversial with Disney fans since plans for California Adventure were first unveiled in July of 1996. And there were Disney fans who, when they saw this concept art, especially that this area of the park that was supposed to pay tribute to the beaches of California by recreating a classic amusement pier from the 30s, they were like, ugh, Walt wouldn't like that. And supposedly the thinking there, Lauren, was that Walt didn't like carny rides. And there's that story about him taking his daughters on the weekends to go ride the merry-go-round in Griffith Park, and him talking about how he didn't want it to, whatever he was going to build in Anaheim it wasn't going to be dirty like an amusement park or that sort of thing. But here's the thing: it wasn't that Walt didn't like carny rides. In fact, if you cold-bloodedly look at Disneyland when it opens in July of '55, I mean, there's a number of rides in there on opening day that you could have found at any amusement park or traveling carnival in the country at that time. I mean, again, you had a merry-go-round, you had King Arthur's Carousel, you had a flat ride, the Mad Tea Party, you had a spinner, Dumbo the Flying Elephant. And by the way, out ahead of today's show, folks, I shared with Lauren two pieces of concept art that Bruce Bushman did for Disneyland's Fantasyland in 53, 54, when the park is still, being sussed out. And Lauren, one of these pieces clearly shows a classic bare bones Ferris wheel right there in Fantasyland.
Like not an eccentric wheel either.
No.
It is very much a Ferris wheel.
It is very much a Ferris wheel. Now, on the other hand, they revisit that idea with another piece of concept art where it's a Disneyfied Ferris wheel in that it's been rethemed to look like the old mill, which is that silly symphony that Walt sent out in the theaters in November.
That looks terrifying, by the way.
Yeah, I mean, your car is at the end, literally, of the arms of a Ferris, or excuse me, a windmill.
Can you imagine if they did that at like the Burning Blade at Epic?
Well, at least you could ride and cook your meal. Anyway, now also, why, it's like, look, Walt couldn't have hated Ferris wheels because Walt's dad, Elias, worked on the Columbia Exposition, also known as the Chicago World's Fair, which was held in that city's Jackson Park from May 1st through October 31st, 1893. And that was where, Lauren, the world's first Ferris wheel debuted. Back then it was known as the Big Wheel. Some people called it the Chicago Wheel, but it was 264 feet tall. Designed by George Washington Gale Ferris. So again, Ferris is a wheel. And it was supposed to be, I love this part of the story. It was the American response to the Eiffel Tower, which had been the centerpiece of the 1889 World's Fair held in Paris. And it's like, okay, so Eiffel Tower was bigger. Top floor is 906 feet off the ground, whereas the tippy-dee top of the Eiffel Tower, another 177 feet taller. So all in all, that thing is 1,083 feet tall. But the key difference was George Ferris's Chicago wheel. It moved. And more to the point, as it spun 36 cars, which, by the way, each of them could hold 60 people. So I can't even think of, how do you cram in 60 people into this thing? But you got a killer view of all 600 acres of the Columbia Exposition, where they had 200 temporary buildings, all of which had been painted white, were lit up with electrical lights. And by the way, that accounts for the other name for the Columbia Exposition, the Chicago World's Fair, and that was the White City. Now, again, just want to stress here, Lauren, this event was held basically the summer of 1893. Walt wasn't born till December of 1901, but he often talked about how his dad would talk about the Chicago World's Fair, how proud Elias was to have worked on something that was this big and so well received. He was a carpenter who worked on the fair. And Walt would especially talk about how his dad would enthuse about, how the Columbia Exposition looked at night when all of these electrical lights came on. And what's interesting is that specific memory of the Chicago World's Fair drove two specific design decisions at Disneyland, Lauren. First of all, the twinkle lights that come on at dusk in that theme park and then outline and illuminate all of the buildings along Main Street, USA. And then Walt made a point in this very same part of the park to put a window up that said Elias Disney Contractor. With the idea that if his dad had been proud to have been associated with the Chicago World's Fair, the Columbia Exposition, Elias would have been just as proud to have been associated with Disneyland as well. So, But anyway, so where did this Walt didn't like Ferris wheel story come from? I learned it actually dates from the fall of 1987, which is when the first state fair was held at Disneyland, and Marty Sklar, the then head of Walt Disney Imagineering, had something that he really didn't like in the hub of that theme park, and we'll get to that story in a sec. But first, this.
When you want your spring break to feel like... and your kids' pool day to feel like... and your hotel bed to feel like... ooh, and room service to feel like... because at Hilton, hospitality feels like...
Your cabana's ready. Would you like fresh towels?
It matters where you stay. Book now at Hilton.com. Hilton, for the stay.
And we're back. Okay, Lauren, we were just talking about Ferris wheels at the Disney parks. And as it turns out, when the first state fair was held at Disneyland back in the fall of 87, the company's first theme park actually had two of these. One of them was placed out front by the train station, facing into the Disneyland parking lot. By the way, not something that guests could ride. This Ferris wheel basically acted as the marquee for the event, which, by the way, that year ran September 15th through November 15th. Now, on the other hand, in the hub, that area in the very center of the park, top of Main Street, just before Sleeping Beauty Castle, there was a second Ferris wheel that guests could actually ride in on, whatever you do to a Ferris wheel. And Disneyland in the mid to late 1980s, they did these sorts of seasonal events. They did Circus Fantasy in the park that debuted January of 86 and then ran to March 25th of that same year as a way to lure Southern Californian locals back to Disneyland during the park's off season. And that's what's kind of interesting about Disneyland, and makes it different than Walt Disney World. Walt Disney World is a destination resort where 70% of the people are flying in or driving down, to have a vacation. And the other 30% who come to the park are locals, where out in California, it's an inversion of that formula, Lauren. It's 70% of the people who go to Disneyland are coming from 100 miles away or less. And they typically visit the park twice a year. They go during the summer to check out the big new attraction or the big new parade. And then they come back sometime between Thanksgiving and Christmas to check out the holiday decorations. And look, if I'm being honest here, Lauren, it wasn't the Ferris wheel that got set up in the hub as part of Disneyland's State Fair event that got Marty Sklar so upset, but rather what was placed there whenever Circus Fantasy was staged inside of Walt's Family Fun Park. And this, Lauren, I swear to God, was a thing called the Globe of Death.
Oh my!
And it
does not scream Disney. I will say that.
The happiest place on earth. This is a classic circus act where two guys on motorcycles are inside of a giant steel globe-like structure, and after they rev up their cycles, they begin doing laps around the inside of this giant steel structure. And
they do that in like Vegas or something.
There we go.
Like
there we go.
Show? Okay.
All right. And each time they narrowly miss each other. So it's thrilling. It's loud. But Marty looked at this thing, which again is just 100 feet or so away from Sleeping Beauty Castle. And it's like, and despite the fact that the Globe of Death always drew a crowd whenever these two motorcycle guys began running laps, Marty's furious. Sklar believes that this specific piece of entertainment runs against everything that Walt wanted when he was designing Disneyland. So, Marty then decides to come up with a way to prevent the globe of death from ever being set up again inside of Disneyland, especially in this side of the park. So he gets together with Blaine Gibson, and that's the Imagineer who sculpted all of the AA figures for the Hall of Presidents. And Marty tells Blaine, I need you to design a statue of Walt for me. Which eventually, Lauren, becomes the Partners statue, which debuts at Disneyland Park back on November 18th, 1993, and that's the 65th anniversary of Mickey Mouse's debut. And, we've since gotten 4 other copies of this statue, in Disney parks around the globe. And look, the company will tell you this was done to honor Walt's memory. It's not true, Lauren. Marty rammed this project through to prevent anything like the Globe of Death from ever being erected in front of Sleeping Beauty Castle in Anaheim ever again. And I bring that up to remind people about the sorcerer hat that was built in front of the Chinese Theater at Disney MGM. By the way, that debuted at the Studio Park September of 2001, and then sat at the end of Hollywood Boulevard for the next 13 years. Wouldn't be torn down till January of 2015. And again, I bring up this 122-foot tall structure, the Sorcerer Mickey hat icon, which served as the centerpiece of the Walt Disney World Resort's 17-month-long 100 Years of Magic celebration, which was, again, built around Walt, being born in December of 1901. Because, Lauren, there was actually a time when this structure was supposed to be built out toward the front of this theme park. In fact, I shared a piece of concept art with you prior to us getting started tonight, and this shows the Sorcerer Mickey hat building was going to be located just outside of the entrance of Disney MGM on that plot of land that's just to the right of all the metal detectors and all that sort of thing. And this would have been the home of that Walt Disney One Man's Dream show, which, by the way, you can still visit today at Disney's Hollywood Studio, though these days that same walkthrough attraction is, and by the way, Jim Schull, our buddy Jim Schull, actually worked on that thing. That walkthrough today is known as Walt Disney Presents.
And Taylor Swift stuff's out of there now.
There we go.
It's back to Walt.
Okay. All right. Now, in order to visit this building that was going to be full of exhibits celebrating the 100th anniversary of Walt Disney's birth, this version of the building, you were going to have to first enter Disney's Hollywood Studios and then make a hard right there at Oscar's Super Service, that fake gas station that's at the front of the park, and where you can rent wheelchairs and ECVs today. But if you followed that path, that would take you back to the Sorcerer's Mickey hat building. But Laura, what was going to be different about this version of that structure was that to either side of the giant Sorcerer's Mickey hat that was going to be rising up out of the Walt Disney's One Man Dream building, was to either side of the giant hat were going to be a working Ferris wheel. So you had 2 Ferris wheels flanking the Sorcerer's Mickey hat and forming a pair of Mickey ears. And yes, guests were supposed to be able to ride those Ferris wheels, which made this early version of Walt Disney's One Man Dream not just a walk-through attraction, but also it had a ride element. And that sounds cool, don't you think?
I love this concept art so much. I know that the Sorcerer Mickey hat was kind of a hot topic. Like, people loved it, people hated it, whatever. But this piece of concept art is really charming. I like it.
Yeah, and if you look off to the left there, you can actually look up Hollywood Boulevard and see the Chinese Theater there. So, I mean, nobody's view was going to be blocked. So
I'm kind of sad that this didn't happen.
Well, here's the thing. All right. So, Disney needed, in order to pull this off, Ferris wheels that had to be built at just the right scale, to either side of this giant Sorcerer's Mickey hat. And so they walked around to all of the companies that made Ferris wheels, and they're like, okay, but it'll cost this much money, and when do you need it by? Ooh, I don't know if we can make that deadline. And they just couldn't find somebody who'd be willing to make this pair of custom Ferris wheels at the right price point, or could meet their delivery deadline. So it doesn't happen. Now, to bring this kind of full circle, 14 years later, Central Florida gets the Orlando Eye, which is a 400-foot tall Ferris wheel right there in Icon Park. By the way, that's at 8449 International Drive. And this one has 30 capsules that hold 10 or 15 people at a time. It's a 22-minute long experience. Have you and the family ever done this, Lauren?
We're Disney bubble kind of people. It was a big deal when we started going to Universal, but it is close to Universal, so I've seen it a ton of times.
Okay, now construction.
And Eric doesn't like heights, so I'll give you
there
that.
we go. All right, so this is not going to happen, folks. But construction of the Orlando Eye begins in 2012. It opens May of 2015, and if you ever get the chance to ride this thing, you get a 360-degree view of Orlando, and honestly, it's a great experience at night, especially if you can time it. If you can be loaded on at 8:45, because that means by 9:00 you're up at the top, and you've got a clear view to the southeast where you can see all 4 of the Disney theme parks plus Disney Springs. And starting at 9:00, well, that's when the fireworks for Luminous, this symphony of us, and Happily Ever After go off. And so you get 2 Disney fireworks shows off to the southeast here. By the way, though, not the highest Ferris wheel, observation wheel. That's what the Orlando Eye and the High Roller in Las Vegas call themselves. The High Roller in Las Vegas is 150 feet taller than the Orlando Eye, so we're talking 550 feet versus 400 feet. And kind of interesting, the one in Vegas opens late March of 2014. The one in Orlando opens a year and a month later, April of 2015. And I was going to suggest that when, you, me, and Eric and the kids are in Vegas in March, that we do the High Roller. And obviously now with Eric and
Eric will take the video.
There we go. There we go. But yeah, well, also just to let folks know, the Hershey's and myself are headed to Vegas in March. And while we're there, we're going to check out Universal Horror Unleashed, and we're also looking to do maybe a couple of shows about, that weird time in the 90s where Vegas suddenly decided they wanted to get into the Disney business and create family-friendly attractions. And
it's the place we're staying. There's a story there, right?
There we go.
About Disney for families.
Yeah. So, but again, that look for those shows later this year after we get back from that trip.
All right, Jim. I think on that note, though, it's time we close up shop here today.
There we go. By the way, folks, if you want to keep up on everything that's happening across the Jim Hill Media Podcast Network, please follow us on social, and don't forget to check out our Patreon for bonus shows and early access.
Yes, and if you have a question or an idea for a future episode, Jim and I absolutely love to hear from you. So Jim can be found at jim@jimhillmedia.com, and I'm at lauren@laurenhersey.com.
And if you like the show, please leave us a quick rating or a review. It helps other Disney fans find I Want That Too.
All right, Jim. Well, that does it for today's episode. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on I Want That Too.